Testing. Is that good? Can everyone hear me? Good morning. Welcome to our talk on Capture the Flags, Gamifying Security Education. I'm Max Feldman, Mrs. Bufferworths on Twitter. I work on the product security team at Slack.
And I'm John Sonnenschein. I work on the red team and vuln management at Slack. Johnny Sunshine on Twitter. You may have seen me on Friday.
And so today we're going to talk a bit about the SDL process that we follow, how that relates to security education, background on CTFs, which we're sure many of you are familiar with, then how we took that, incorporated into our security education process, the planning that went into that, the flags that we use to try and make it accessible to an audience of not just hackers, the execution, and then lessons learned from that. So a bit about our security development lifecycle. We have a CI/CD pipeline. It's super easy to push code. People are coding on day one. We have exercises where you push to production in the first week. It takes about 10 minutes to push, so you make your edits, push, bam, it's live. So pretty quick, but a little, not dangerous, but fast moving. So we have a tool that we use that we just open sourced, called GoSDL. Check it out if you're interested. It helps us scale. The product security team is about 6 people. Our engineering org is about 500 or so. So we have this tool. It gives self-service checklists so that people can look at what they're working on, look at their new features, and raise awareness to us, the security team, of potential security issues, and to keep our communication between the dev and the security teams transparent. And all of this goes together to have a culture of trusting our developers. So we have a lot of communication with our developers. We have strong relationships. It's great. But we want to make sure that as part of that relationship, we're helping each other grow. So we learn more about our code base and development from them. They learn more about security from us. And this self-service approach does rely on people having more knowledge of security. And so you have to keep them educated, have to keep people learning, and learning in an engaged way for this to be sustainable. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, but developers aren't always security experts. People come from a variety of different backgrounds, usually not hacking though. Maybe computer science degree, maybe coding boot camp, a lot of different backgrounds. And so they're not security experts. Giving slideshows to teach security or text can be informative, but boring and doesn't always capture the essence of actually breaking something or the satisfaction or excitement of executing, exploiting a vulnerability. Talking about RCE is not as fun as exploiting RCE. And we have different employees of different backgrounds. Everyone in a company is involved in the security of it, whether or not they're technical. So a goal of security education that we have is also to educate our non-technical employees. Definitely our technical ones, but other people can be a gateway into your corporate environment. So you want people to appreciate security, but also have fun. So we have front-end people, background people, legal team, marketing, the things you find at a company. So we want to also encourage, with this education, intra-company networking and bonding between people, like bringing together different teams to learn about security makes it a little bit more fun for everyone. And if you're just doing onboarding classes, which is what we do and we're doing for a while, and still do, it's good, it's nice hands-on practice, but it's just an hour, and it doesn't necessarily bring everyone together with a problem solving, the shared experience that they can have. So, also security training and classes can be expensive or overkill. They're great if you're a security professional and you have a budget from your company to go and spend several $1,000s on a SANS course or something, but is a developer going to say like, yes, I want to drop that much money on this skill that I don't necessarily need for my day-to-day job? Maybe not. Security conferences may also not be relevant enough. They're also full of degenerates. And so maybe developers don't want to go to that, or they're intimidated. So can we improve our education techniques? That's the big question here. And the answer is yes. So I'm going to hand it off to John to talk about CTFs.
CTFs. How the button works. So some of the history of CTFs. So the first one that was ever formalized was at DEFCON 4. The goons put it together. Over time, the challenges became more normalized, kind of like they had regular kind of challenge categories. They kind of automated the scoring of them instead of just a goon decided that that's how much that was worth. And they're super common puzzles. I mean, who in the room has done a CTF before? Yeah, like a good half of you at least. So as most of you probably know, there's two major kind of categories of CTF. So there's the Jeopardy kind where there's a challenge. The challenge is assigned a number of points. You complete the challenge and you get those points. Sometimes there's like a scaling depending on who does it first. And the other one is attack and defense. And that's where you have to both attack other participants' machines as well as have your own machines which you are meant to defend against other attacks. CTFs are fun. They provide hands-on experience. They're really great educational tools. I mean, the first time I ever wrote a buffer overflow was for CTF. They encourage competition. A lot of them you do much better in a team, so they encourage teamwork, like figuring out problems together. Sometimes you'll have a crypto guy on your team. Sometimes you'll have a web app person on your team. And they've become so common that if you look on CTF time, there's almost never a weekend without a CTF. So if you ever want to play a CTF, you can just go play a CTF. Right, so the DEFCON 4 CTF was the first formal CTF. The contestants provided and then hacked the others, so it was an attack-defense style. Usually the CTFs for some of the DEFCON and qualifying are organized by other winning CTF teams, so like Plaid or Legit Business Syndicate and what have you. They're great ways to network at a con. You know, lots of cons you can just sit down at the CTF and you can talk to the people that are beside you. And so we started thinking about doing CTFs as a training tool, and this isn't unprecedented. SANS does NetWars, which is a training CTF. I'm not sure if any of you ever played with NetWars. You can usually get a free week or whatever at various times. Some of the cool stuff that we've seen recently in CTFs, DEFCON 24 was the Cyber Grand Challenge CTF, so rather than solving the puzzles, you had to have a solver which would solve the puzzles for you. So it was completely automated. They ran a whole thing. There was a big stage, a lot of flash and visualizations and stuff that were kind of cool. Last year's CTF at DEFCON was just batshit. They had some crazy Middle Endian 9-bit byte length machine. And they announced it 24 hours before the challenge. And still when it started, teams had tools in place. So they basically spent the entire night rewriting all their tooling to deal with this just crazy non-standard machine. Some of the pros and cons of CTFs, they have great puzzles. They have lots of rewards and incentives, memes. There's lots of different CTF platforms if you want to run a CTF. So CTFD, Facebook CTF, some custom platforms. These are all for scoring and challenge submissions and what have you. Some of the cons are like, they're not always work appropriate. So the Blaze CTF is a weed themed CTF. Probably not going to drag your developers at work into that in most companies. And they're tailored to a different level of security skills. So CTFs as they exist now are really great for security professionals and people that are used to playing CTFs and have lots of weird crypto challenges and reversing challenges. But if you're a regular, random developer for an engineering organization somewhere, you probably have never encountered any of this before, and the CTFs are going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible for you, for most of the challenges. Pass it off to Max.
Cool. So yeah, as John said, there are various pros and cons of CTF. So what we wanted to do was keep all those pros and kind of mitigate some of the cons and make this a little more accessible for people who've never done a CTF before, or perhaps have never even heard of it. So this is actually you.
Is it? Okay. Yes. All right. Right. So we ran a CTF, and we started by coming up with our goals. So why are we running this CTF? We wanted to raise the security awareness and skills of our developers because, as Max mentioned earlier, they're developers. They do development work. They're not security professionals. They have other things on their mind, like how am I going to solve this particular problem, other than just, security, which is why we exist as an organization. We wanted to engage a broad audience, so we didn't just want our developers in there because, again, we have a marketing team, we have a legal team, we have a customer engagement team. We have all these other teams that aren't developers, and doing things like writing weird crypto things is outside of their skill level and outside of their job role. And we also wanted to measure our impact at the end. So we wanted to see, after we were done, that we're having a positive impact. That, we spent, it was like a month planning this, where, a bunch of the security team was kind of taken off their regular tasks to start planning the CTF. We wanted to make sure this was worthwhile. So we started planning in October, for October, because it's Security Awareness Month, kind of generally defined in the industry. So we started planning in August. August, we had this idea, why don't we run a CTF for our developers? So, we talked about it a little bit amongst ourselves. Then we engaged our internal communications team. There's a couple cool people there that wanted to join in. And our internal events team, we wanted to have it be more than just the CTF. So we wanted to have we have a Thursday happy hour at work. We wanted to have like a security themed happy hour. We wanted to do more than just have the CTF there. So we had a lockpicking village of our own. So we have a couple people that do lockpicking both on the security team and off it. So we took a conference room for the week and had a little lockpicking village going on there. We started up channels on our internal Slack instance because we are Slack. And so part of our planning was also we wanted to avoid disruption. We didn't want to take the entire organization offline for a week to just, mess around and do puzzles. So we figured that about a week was a good amount of time. So most CTS run for about 48 hours and change. We figured that this would be something that people would do on their off time, in between breaks or on their lunch break. They can go poke away at some of the challenges. So we gave them a week for it. And then we came up with some prizes. And we thought, what would be some cool prizes? Like, we could get lockpicks and stuff. Then we realized that we are a multinational company and legal jurisdictions do apply. Sending lockpicks across international borders where we're unsure of the legality of them wasn't going to fly. So we came up with a bunch of cool prizes like Raspberry Pis and other things that we would not have a problem shipping across borders. So planning. So we worked within the security team to create our content, came up with a bunch of different kinds of challenges. So some of it was just security trivia, random things you can Google. Didn't need to be a developer, didn't need to write any code for them, just, Google things, learn a little bit about security, just from learn what OSINT means, for instance. We had a bunch of web app challenges. We are a largely web company, so most of our developers are web developers. So we created some web app challenges. We had some minor crypto challenges because, every application you write in the modern era uses some form of crypto. So we had some little minor crypto stuff. We had a little bit of forensics just to show what our incident response team does. Some OSINT challenges. Again, because we have people who are not developers competing, we wanted them to have some challenges that they could go out and do too. So some of it was like Googling things and just finding general OSINT. And us being Slack, we also had some Slack-specific challenges. So to point out some of the ways in which you can configure Slack securely and insecurely, we put flags in some of the administration interfaces for test teams and what have you, so that people who may be in charge of administering Slack or knowing how to administer Slack, for instance, our customer service people, could go and learn the ways in which it could be configured more or less securely based on a company's needs. When we decided to put together the actual CTF platform, we chose Facebook CTF platform, largely because it looked pretty. CTFD is a great application, pretty easy to deploy. But it's pretty no frills. You have colors and little clicky bits, but the Facebook CTF has this cool map interface where you zoom around and stuff like that. We thought that it would just be some cool flash so that when the developers do play with the CTF, they have something cool to look at. It looks a little bit more, I guess, professional and less engineering driven. We picked a domain name based on a meme. This was around the time that fidget spinners were a thing, so we picked fidgetspinning.life. They still are. Max informs me. And we do have some disabled employees, so we also wanted them to be able to compete. So we took all of our challenges and also put them in a spreadsheet. So if you needed to use a screen reader or what have you, this was still available for you. We hosted it all on DigitalOcean for no particular reason other than it was there and cheap. And we used Slack for collaboration. So we had a couple of different Slack channels that you could both collaborate with each other and communicate with the security team, and we could give you hints and what have you. And Slack is where CTFs happen is a pun on the company slogan.
Cool. So I'm going to talk about the flags. So yeah, as John said, we did a lot of planning to see how we could keep flags, or how to keep the challenges accessible to people of different skill levels, of a variety of backgrounds. So now we're going to talk about the actual implementation and how we did that in practice. So CTF flags, we were going for meme-based, millennial appeal. We wanted a heavy integration of puns. And we split the work between the relevant teams. So we have the product security team, we have the red team, we have incident response, we have other security teams or people of different backgrounds. So we wanted to split that work, let people make challenges for the area that they like, that they're interested in. So our incident response team created the forensics challenges, product security worked on our AppSec related challenges, and we all kind of collaborated for the miscellaneous challenges, the trivia, the Slack specific challenges. So the first couple of questions were in trivia and sleuthing. So sleuthing we used instead of OSINT, but we introduced the concept of it. So we had If You Want to Cry My Lover, which was just a trivia question about about Marcus Hutchins, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and WannaCry. So that was a security pop culture reference. We wanted to give people, these are kind of gimme challenges, but if you're in security, maybe you wouldn't have to look it up, but it's something you can Google if you're not familiar, still get those points, and you start off by scoring. You start off by winning, so you get people interested. We had All Your Base Are Belong to Us, which was an introduction to base 64 encoding. So we started with assuming, no background, and not even necessarily technical skills. One of our other goals was to get people from different backgrounds working together. So some of the questions that were Slack specific were, actually a little bit easier if you were already a Slack admin. If you've poked around the admin interfaces, you would know where some of these things might be hidden. One interesting tidbit is, one of our devs reached out to me and said, like, how did you do this, first challenge? Because the only way I could think to do it was to, like, do all these database queries, and like he had this very, very complicated way of doing it. And I was like, oh, you just go to /admins/ this configuration setting. So it was interesting to see like an admin who would quickly do that via the way we intended. An engineer didn't necessarily know that. So that's why we wanted to encourage people to work together so that different skill sets are covered and actually required to do this in a short amount of time. So one of our other challenges was do it for the gram. So I posted a picture on tagged Slack HQ, put a flag in that. So quick and easy thing to Google, but something that may be a little informative to someone who hasn't considered, oh, what happens if I post something sensitive on social media? Had another one that was like, do it for the link, and I put a flag. I endorsed myself as a flag on LinkedIn, and so we gave some hints to that. So then we had a cryptography section, which did actually get into some harder crypto challenges, and we had to pivot, which we'll talk about a bit later, and introduce more challenges for a couple teams that really excelled. So these started as much easier than a regular, or maybe like a DEFCON CTF. So started with Rot 13 and an intro to Caesar ciphers. It's all Latin to me. Hash me outside, how about that? Which was more topical at the time, was showing hash killer and how easy it is to crack an MD5. So we said, hey, here are some MD5 strings. We think there is a flag in them, and you could paste them into hash killer and it would give you the flag. But so maybe all of us know that. We know MD5 is broken, that you can do these things online. This can be eye-opening for someone who hasn't thought about that before, that you can just take what should be a secure hash and go to a website that will just break it in a second for you. Or these were already pre-computed, but we showed the ease with which this could be broken. yeah, so we also had a forensics challenge. So our incident response team put together a PCAP with the full attack scenario of a malicious insider, and here's them stealing some information, here's them reaching out to someone. No extra traffic, just like two IPs going back and forth. But this is maybe the first PCAP that someone's looked at. So we said, hey, we recommend Wireshark. So then poke around with Wireshark, and then there were some basics covered there, some basic traffic analysis, seeing things go back and forth. Covered a little bit about unzipping a file from a PCAP, then some OSINT as well, which led to Word document properties and also EXIFs. So if you don't know that EXIF information has your GPS coordinates or the city that you're in, we hinted at that. Oh, I think there was a really good pun for that too. It was like, maybe we didn't go with it. I forgot it. Just trust me that it was probably a really good pun. So it's also, if you've done a forensics challenge at other CTFs, you might do more reversing, more strings, like binary analysis, things like that. We didn't use that. We didn't use other more obscure protocols. We stuck with just basic IP, HTTP, to try and, we kept it easier. So some people who were familiar, who have a networking background, did it very quickly. But a lot of people, it was their first time using Wireshark, so it was a fun thing for them to do. So we also had a range of web application flags. This is what my team worked on, a lot of them. So we had things ranging from reading an HTML comment to PHP deserialization exploitation. We tried to cover the OWASP top 10, introduce people to a variety of web app security concepts. These are things we actually cover in our developer onboarding, but not to everyone in the company. So some people who have a little bit of HTML background could then see like, oh, here's a comment and this has a flag in it. Or what happens if you, there was, one was like an insecure direct object reference, and if you incremented something, you could get to a flag. We hinted at that. We had some auth bypasses, modifying cookies, had some hints. So people got to see what simple web app vulns there can be and how to exploit those. We had an XSS challenge, which included Phantom.js for an automated verification of a working exploit. So that was pretty neat. We didn't just ask for, give us a proof of concept. We had something continuously running to make sure you actually exploited it as the page was created. We had SQL injection, RCE, and we had a PHP deserialization vulnerability, which also led to RCE, and that was taken from another CTF, and we'll talk about why we had to do that right now in the execution. So we talked about the planning, what we did, the steps leading up to it. So when we actually launched, we had a company-wide announcement. We had done all this preparation, coordination with internal events. We had some Slack channels for people to communicate. We did an early launch for the Melbourne office, so stayed up on Sunday night to make sure things were working for them. And then some employees started working on the challenges pretty much immediately. By the end of day one, one team of 5 had most of the challenges. And then a couple stronger teams got into it, and then we ran out of challenges. So we said, what was our first hardest challenge? It was buffer overflow. Right. It was so we had a buffer overflow, like a pretty basic one, which was taken, something you could probably Google to find the solution for, and we were like, okay, that's probably too hard, but we'll leave it in there. And then like day 2 comes along, and a handful of teams had just done all of them. So then we started scrambling to make more. So one person who was competing is kind of an ex-hacker, so he doesn't work on the security team, but he has that background. Also, our CTO, super good at this. So we had to make more challenges and steal some from other CTFs, including PPP. So what worked here? People participated. These challenges were accessible to a lot of teams. We saw the Melbourne office, when they started, they had a couple teams of 5 with some people from our customer success team and also some ops people. We had other teams that had devs or people who are friendly across their departments. And so they made teams of friends, and they were working together to get some of these challenges. So we had a lot of interactions with the company. So the security team was branching out. We're meeting more people. We're getting more face time, establish yourselves as an organization that people can come to with questions when they need help. We also got our CTO is participating, so that's great if you run a thing and your CTO is so involved in it that he gets all of the challenges.
The first time I'd ever spoken with our CTO was with one of our challenges. So he'd come to me and was just, he enjoyed it because I stole it from Plaid. So shout out to them.
Yeah, so we got kind of top-down recognition, which was nice. And it's nice to know that people in the organization are engaged. We had people who reached out asking about challenges, asking for hints. We host security office hours. People swung by that with questions. People were asking in channel. Teams were helping other teams. It wasn't like we all work together, so it's not very cutthroat. And people say like, hey, have you tried this? Other people give other hints. And teams were formed, so, they say teamwork makes the dream possible. The majority of people who participated were on a team. The top handful of teams were individuals, but in the top 10, about half were teams of 4 to 5 people. So we had a lot of teams going on. These were security cookies. Yeah. We had these for the happy hour. Did they play hackers?
Yeah, we
opted out of playing hackers because it's our work, but they had like Doritos and Mountain Dew, right? Yeah, they definitely got Doritos and Mountain Dew. So
the hackers themed, we hire some bartenders. They had a bunch of hackers themed drinks that they made up, like the acid burn and the crash override and what have you.
And so what else worked? The servers stayed up for the most part. We had like 5 8s or so that's a B+. That's pretty solid. Facebook CTF is flashy and fun. It's a cool thing if you've never done a CTF before to be going through this neat looking if you haven't seen Facebook CTF before, you go country by country and it's like hacking North Korea, hacking this other country, and you get points. You see the leaderboard, and it's a pretty slick UI. 4 individuals completed all of our challenges, including the scramble challenges where we were taking in things from other CTFs. The link unfurl, which you can see in the bottom right. So when you actually shared this link in Slack, it would unfurl to this super legit looking thing. Here we give out certificates. So that's a certificate of hacking and trophies. So these were some of the prizes. We also did Raspberry Pis for the top 4. The people who completed all the challenges got Raspberry Pis. Or the Raspberry Pi Zero and some other neat hardware. So, people liked those. The people who were it's a fun thing for anyone who's interested in tech, and the people who are doing well at the CTF, I would say, are likely to enjoy a thing like that. Couple things that didn't work. HHVM had some, I don't know if they're caching issues. They're maybe intentional, but I spent a few hours trying to get that link unfurl to work, and I just took down the whole server every time I tried to refresh it. So I would tear it down, change HTML, relaunch, find out I messed it up, and then do it again until it worked. There were another thing about Facebook CTF is it's not, so CTFD has a very easy to go through, here are the easiest challenges, here are the next, group them in sections. Facebook CTF is more by countries, so you kind of click around and it's fun, but you don't necessarily see here's where I should start, here's where I should finish. I'm not a sysadmin. It was a lot of copying and pasting scripts. This was the script that I copied to set up SSL or TLS on all the servers. I am sure there is a better way to administer multiple machines. So in the future, we're going to talk to other people on our team. So we have a whole infrastructure team and people who, and we'll talk about this, in the future steps. What also didn't work, occasional flubs of challenges. So for example, we made a padding Oracle challenge. I kind of, threw that together, forgot that you can't get the first block of the ciphertext, but with the second block decrypted, they could go back and Google what the phrase was, because it was something, drown your spirits in woe, and then if you get the last half, it ends up being your spirits in woe. So with Googling, you could go back to that. Someone pointed it out, I fixed it. DigitalOcean probably offers better features than copying and pasting scripts every time you launch a server. So in the future, we'll do that a bit differently. Also, a lot of manually adding manual fixes, tearing down machines, and then building them back up to get them working again. This also, I wouldn't say this didn't work, but this relies on good actors, people not actually trying to break things or trying to attack the other participants. So it was robust enough for playful work and people participating. If it were teams who were really trying to be the only winner, they probably could have destroyed these servers. But within a company, you can kind of rely on your coworkers being good actors. But yeah, we're going to have a better time next time when we loop in more people with experiences. So, pleasant surprises. We had a higher than expected level of participation. We had good engagement, good discussions, which is always great. Like, if your security team interacts more with your organization, you at least become the friendly or the fun people, and when they get a phishing email, they don't click it, maybe they ask you first. Or maybe they come to you with a security question before they start, thinking about an architecture and getting more entrenched in a way of thinking that may not be the best. We got attention from higher levels, engagement from individual contributors to executives. Our CTO and co-founder loved it. Less pleasant, really smart people doing it, so we ran out of challenges, and the lost productivity from everyone who built this and everyone who participated. But Slack stayed up during that week, and it stayed secure, so it was a success. So I'm going to hand it over to John for the feedback that we got from people about the challenges.
Yeah, so after we ran the CTF, we did a survey with everybody that participated, just asking them a bunch of questions, how they felt about it, what was a good use of their time, did they enjoy it, what their favorite challenges were, what their least favorite challenges were. Everybody seemed to like the SQL injection challenge. It required a bunch of iteration and not just remember the single trick. So it wasn't just like Google it and paste this thing in. You actually had to think about what you were doing and like dig around a little bit. People like the single site request forgery and the Python challenges. So the Python challenge was, that was the one that I stole from Plaid that our CTO really liked. It was, you had a Python interpreter, did not have the standard library, and also were not allowed to use alphanumeric characters. So that became a little bit of a trick to rebuild. I thought it would last him all week. It took him 6 hours. So, I mean, I kept him busy for 6 hours. I guess that's good. People's least favorite challenges were the cross-site scripting one because there was ways that you could block yourself from being able to complete it. So a stored cross-site scripting that prevented you from going back to the site again. The site refreshed itself every 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, sometimes Phantom.js broke, and then I would have. So sometimes people would reach out and say like, "Hey, I don't know if I did this right," and I would say, "Okay, which technique did you use?" And then if it was something that should have worked, I rebooted the server, and if it was something that shouldn't have worked, I felt more or less confident that it was still working.
And the padding oracle one, again, as Max mentioned earlier, people weren't super a fan of because it was broken until somebody pointed it out.
It was also hard.
Also that it was hard, yes. Some positive aspects, again, collaboration. We got lots of people around the company collaborating with each other, got lots of people who had not previously reached out to the security team, talking to the security team, which is a big bonus. And I feel that people learned a lot from it. So we teach how to avoid writing cross-site scripting in our onboarding classes. We don't teach exactly how to exploit it. And I think that it's really eye-opening to be able to actually exploit a vulnerability rather than just knowing like, oh, well, don't do this because it's exploitable versus like, this is exactly how easy it is to exploit. Some of the areas to improve is, sandboxing, just engaging our infrastructure operations team to help us run the infrastructure rather than trying to do it ourselves as we are not sysadmins. And, not underestimating our employees. We came at it thinking that these are not security people. They probably haven't played CTFs. Maybe one or two people have. But we had a really good amount of engagement. Lots of people solved lots more challenges than we were expecting them to. So doing it again in the future, probably we would just throw in some more difficult challenges, some real actual difficult CTF challenges, just to leave them out there in case anybody wants to solve them. More PR. So we started announcing it in the month of October, which meant that people had vacations planned, people had other project milestones planned. So it didn't become top of their list of things to do, even though many people came to us and were like, "I wish I had known about this earlier, so I could have planned my milestones around it." So just more build up. Maybe start announcing it in August that it'll start happening again. Lessons learned, have a cool domain name. People enjoyed our meme-based domain names. If we were to do it again a month ago, tidepods.life, but that meme is already stale, Max. We're not doing that one. Market it better ahead of time, same reasons I just mentioned. Again, don't underestimate people. Your developers are smarter than you think. They're probably going to be better at hacking than you would expect. And incorporate more teams. Just help with bringing people together into teams.
Yeah, we didn't actually offer a facilitation of forming teams. We said, hey, form teams, go for it. So I think maybe we could offer a spreadsheet or something, a little more automated encouragement of people working with other people.
Yeah, and I think that would probably work better for the cross-functional groups as well. So have a CE member teamed up with, a customer service member teamed up with a developer so that they can all solve them all together. Future work. Do another security awareness week. Do it again. Probably do it again next October. We should probably start planning for that. More participation, bring more people in. More communication, as we mentioned earlier, like start announcing in August rather than in October so that people can plan their milestones around it, plan their OKRs around it. Have different prizes for different levels. So we had one tier of challenges, and if you solve for X number of points, you win. I think it would probably work better in the future if we had different sort of tiering. So if you solve all of the OSINT challenges, you get some prizes, and if you solve all of the development challenges, just to make it easier for some of the non-technical groups to collect enough points to win prizes and get certificates and things like that. And yeah, so thanks for coming to our talk, and if there's any questions, we're open to that. Yeah, what's up?
Team building exercises. This seems like this would actually be great. Like when we did team building at the company I used to work at, we might make coffee mugs. That was okay. But this is actually really useful.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially building it across functional groups. Having CTFs as a team building would be a really cool idea.
We also saw there were teams. So our Melbourne office is smaller than the HQ, and so. But they had a decent number of teams. So percentage of the office, Melbourne was the highest because they're a pretty tight-knit group. So this was another way for them to bond. And we had some CE people working with ops, on multiple teams there, I think, and some other technical and non-technical teams. And they had a very good mix because they already knew each other, and they see each other in a smaller space. In San Francisco, we had, which is where our HQ is, there were more teams of people who already worked together. So, we did see both angles, and there's definitely a value in, team collaborating on something that isn't one of their goals for work, like, an escape the room, but you're escaping God, I was looking for a pun, but, you're hacking stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had a bowling team event, and I would say none of us learned anything or grew as people. It was fun. Bowling's fun, but it's nice to bond with people you work with while you're overcoming challenges and expanding your skill set. Yeah. I would say it just worked, which was fortunate. And we didn't expect the level of buy-in. So Cal, our CTO, we hadn't engaged him in particular, but once he found out about it, he participated, like, as a participant. He was doing the challenges. We had solid support from the whole organization. I think we're both a little bit lucky, but we also work very hard to be a team that people like, that people enjoy engaging with, that is friendly and easy to work with. So the communications team, we hadn't worked with many of them or any of them in a strictly work context before, but Jared, we knew a handful of people on these various teams that we were engaging, and so they said, sure, like, cool, we can work together on this, or cool, security sounds fun, like learning more about this sounds really interesting. So we did try and pitch it as like a good learning opportunity, good team building, not too much of a time commitment, not too much of the prizes were not very expensive for a corporate budget. The server time was also very cheap. So between like those factors, yes, we did have buy-in. There wasn't really resistance to it. But I think how you pitch it can help. Like if you're trying to do this at your company, if you can present it well, or when you build those relationships, it becomes a lot easier. So we had some groundwork already laid there.
Yes, I mean, we pitched it as part of Security Awareness Week, which helped a lot. It wasn't just like, we have some fun puzzles and we're going to waste your time with them. It was like, it's October, it's Security Awareness Week. Rather than throwing a bunch of seminars that people can come to, we're just going to throw some challenges. And we gave enough time for them. So we gave a week rather than 48 hours, for instance. So we gave enough time for the challenges that, like, it could be something that you could do when you're like idle thoughts, or like in between meetings or compiling and whatever. Yeah. So we pitched it as like, this isn't going to be a huge time sink. This is like in your off time or after hours, if you feel like it. Then, maybe we'll take up a little bit of your time, but it's not going to be, we don't want projects to slip because of it.
Yeah, and also to add to that, since Hacktober, like October is Security Awareness Month, has been growing, and the more attention that got, the easier it was to say, like, everyone else is doing it. And people who work at Slack come from other tech companies too. So if you come from like somewhere else in the industry, they may have already done this. So it's growing in familiarity, which makes it easier to sell. It's like, this is just an industry standard practice to have this, and that helps a lot too. Yeah. Did you have a question?
I was just kind of curious, how big was the team that actually planned and just the two of you, or did you have more?
It was us two, and then some other people helped with the challenges. So the web app stuff we had, was Zach still around? Yeah. Two other people working on the web app stuff. CCERT was Eric and Michael, so about two people who put their challenges together. As far as the planning and infrastructure, it was us doing all the interfacing, but like our communications and internal marketing team was helping us format like where to post, what to post, and like what channels to post it in, and what timing works best, like when you should post it for which office, which channel you should use for each location, like EU time zone, Australia time zone, or whatever Melbourne time zone is. And so, yeah, it was a lot of people coming together, but it was mostly us facilitating it, and it was manageable. It was, getting things rolling. I don't know if it was the easiest part, but coming up with challenges, that was a lot of people who contributed. And I think one of the harder parts of that is, I think it's easy to make a hard challenge. It's easy to make a challenge that is very difficult to solve, or to take one that's difficult to solve. It's, we put more time into thinking of how do we make a challenge that isn't an insult to one's intelligence, but isn't necessarily just like, here, break RSA or something, which is going to be hard / hopefully very hard. But to have something that's still engaging. But yeah, so us two handling the main coordination infrastructure. So it was like my DigitalOcean account, and I would add John's SSH keys so he could fiddle with the servers he was administering. And yeah, does that answer the question well? Okay.
How much time did you guys put into this setup?
4 weeks each.
A few weeks. So we started in August, and I would maybe like 5 to 10 hours a week leading up to it. Does that sound right? And then during the week, it was at least, I would say, 3/4 of our time of running it and keeping it up and engaging with people.
I think that the rest of the security team that helped. The rest of the security team that helped with the challenges, when it was running, didn't really need to have much input. But me and Max together, basically like 3/4 of our time, like you said, was devoted to that, and we had a lot of buy-in from our CISO as well. To it's okay if we go and do that instead of our actual jobs for a week. So,
but Slack remained secure.
Yes, it did. It did remain secure. There were no breaches that week. It was good.
Other questions? I saw a couple. Yeah.
Did you try to maybe track the participants so that you get credit for continuing education or requirements for security training?
Not in that particular.
No. So we know who did it, but we didn't track it as a. Since we have onboarding security education that's mandatory. That's what we use as the compliance side of things. That's an area to be improved, though, right? This is more hands-on. This goes beyond our initial onboarding, and so the better we get at this, the better we'll be able to track who has done more, who's done more than just basic onboarding. Have a list of people who participated or even who did very well. Starts to help us if we ever want to poach people from internal teams too. Now we know who to do. We're going to take our CTO and co-founder and we're going to bring him to the security team instead. Yeah, does that answer the question? Cool. Other questions? Cool. Okay. Thank you, everyone.